Well, it looks like Geno's at it again, talking more trash about Caitlyn Clark. This is Geno Auriemma we're talking about, the head coach of the University of Connecticut women's basketball team, UConn. They've won 11 national championships in women's basketball since 1995. Nobody else is close. Even the emerging powerhouse of the University of South Carolina with Dawn Staley, they have won 3 national championships. I know they've probably got quite a bit more coming, but I don't think they're going to get 11 or even come close. Kim Mulkey in that time period, I believe, is second among coaches with national championships with 4, behind obviously Pat Summitt, who had already started a dynasty before Geno started his dynasty with the University of Tennessee Lady Vols, and it's quite honestly, just kept adding to it. I think she won 5 or 6 after Geno won his first one, but just he can't keep her name out of her mouth. I've been trying to like put a train of thought together of how bad this is for him, how damaging this is, how bad of a look this is for him. All this, mind you, while Caitlyn Clark's taking part in Annika Sorenstam's LPGA event, taking part in the program. She's been hosting, been doing speaking at some conferences, women's conferences, and from all accounts has been knocking it out of the park. I'd love to actually watch those myself. She's very, very well spoken, very intelligent, and she doesn't really overexpose herself either. She's not one of those people that's going to show up everywhere, and it's really helped her out a lot. So she's out there having the time of her life while these other people involved in women's basketball are scrambling still to try to figure out why this person has done what nobody before her has been able to do, and that is get the nation's eyes fixed on women's basketball. And even that's not really worked. They're fixed on her. She just happens to be a women's basketball player. So I'm just going to start with what recently happened and work backwards. So Geno Auriemma is on this podcast, and he brings up Caitlyn Clark and just says, she talks a lot of shit, which, okay, she does. You know who else does? Every other good athlete ever. Larry Bird. You go on YouTube and listen to all these legends like Dominique Wilkins and people before him, and after, talking about all the trash Larry Bird talked to them. Just type in Xavier McDaniel and Larry Bird trash talk and hear some great trash talking stories. Gary Payton, best trash talker ever, by all accounts. Even better than Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan talked a lot of trash. He was good at it because he could back it up. And by all accounts, Gary Payton, one of my favorite players ever, was even better at trash talking. The glove. Probably the only guard in NBA history better at defense than Michael. And probably the only player in NBA history better at trash talking than Michael. Man, I really wish him and Sean Kemp and those Sonics teams could have won at least one championship, but some people by the name of Hakeem and Michael stopped them, unfortunately. But yeah, so he's talking about that, and that's why she's taking these brutal hits. For those who don't know, over the WNBA season this year, Caitlyn Clark's rookie season, her first game against Chicago, she's standing there waiting to catch an inbound pass, and Kennedy Carter, who it turns out is a head case and a half, even by the women's basketball standard, just walks up behind her and hip checks her. She didn't even know it's coming. Didn't have a chance to brace herself, so it had to sting like, probably hurt it, or at least sting like crazy. The next game, I think it was against Chicago, Angel Reese, the person who couldn't stop talking about Caitlyn Clark if her life depended on it. This is coming from me, who's made a lot of my videos about Caitlyn. I don't think I've got a video yet without mentioning her. I might have done 1 or 2. But she just basically swiped her across the head with her arm. Made it look like she was trying to make it look like she was going for the block. But, I've never seen that before. I've never seen somebody going for a block and having their hand 20 feet, not 20 feet, but it felt like 20 feet. Is a good 2 or 3 feet away from the ball, just clothesline Caitlyn across the head, whipped her head to the side, which is the part nobody wants to talk about, which is the real damaging part, and caused her to fall down. Luckily, she's able to catch her fall. And then in their third game against, you guessed it, Chicago, and I think it was before they finally took her out of the game, before Angel started her stat padding, and both teams emptied their bench. except for Chicago keeping Angel in. She just pad her stats. Basically, Diamond Shields uh, just tackled her like a strong safety coming over the middle. Ronnie Lott would have been proud of that one. And Geno saying because she talks shit, she deserves it. All right, first of all, and look, I'm the last person who likes to lecture people on morality, especially in sports. Sports and politics are the two areas where morality just does not apply, need not apply. In fact, the more of it you have, seems like the less better you do. I mean, you just look at history, but I'm not. But to sit there and say, yeah, it's okay that they did that. I mean, it was one of those hits could have, you know, knocked her out for the season and potentially caused damages that could have limited her in the rest of her career. Um, and this is not even including Dejanay carrying her and poking her and stabbing her in the eye with her 4-inch acrylic nails, 2-inch, whatever. And that happens. Women's basketball, you forget about it. Back to the dark ages. Back to nobody paying attention. Back to it only being a strictly political league for political purposes only. Um, Nobody paying attention to these women as athletes and seeing what they actually do. So that's first of all. And Geno's, not is saying it's okay that they do that. That's not good. That's not a good look, especially if you're the coach of a college team. College is where you're supposed to be, instilling these values into people. Like Dean Smith did to Michael Jordan. So you're supposed to be instilling these, virtues and stuff that are supposed to follow them the rest of the way. I guess it's no wonder that all these UConn alumni that have done so well have had such things to say about her, like Diana Taurasi, Brianna Stewart, Sue Bird. I mean, good Lord, no wonder. That's who they had to have as their mentor as teenagers. So, another thing you have to think about if you're Geno Auriemma, every girl in high school or even middle school playing college that's showing talent and showing that they can get a scholarship and might become good enough to play at a school like UConn. Well, it's going to come down to UConn or South Carolina if you're really really good, or some of these other schools. Well, you got Geno just talking all about her. Why would they want to go to? Why would they want to go to UConn if their head coach is doing that? You got to think about, like, take for instance the early '90s. Everybody wanted to be Joe Montana. Every good quarterback, I mean, even to this day to an extent, but I mean, if you're a good quarterback in high school, you want to be Joe Montana. The clutch plays, all the Super Bowl wins, all the success, the MVPs. So what if you've got, say, the head coach of Miami? I forgot who it was after Jimmy Johnson took over, left, built the Dallas dynasty. Imagine if they were sitting there saying all these bad things about Joe Montana, saying, yeah, those brutal hits he took from those Giants players, he deserved it because he talked trash. And then you got Florida State, who's the other power of the early '90s, along with Nebraska and all them, saying, saying good things about Joe Montana. Where are you going to go? You're going to go to Florida State probably because you want to be the next Joe Montana. And you definitely don't want to go where they're talking bad about him. And that's kind of what we have going on now with UConn and South Carolina. Dawn Staley's been very, had good things to say about Caitlyn Clark. Now, granted, Caitlyn did win the Dawn Staley Award, which goes to the best guard in the nation in college 3 years in a row, and had a lot of really good things to say about Dawn and her game and what she's done for women's basketball. So, I mean, of course, she's going to have, good opinions, but she also recognizes, I want the next Caitlyn Clark. And, talking trash about her is not going to get it done. And she's on that committee, that the U.S. Olympic Committee for the women's national basketball team that, kept her off of it. And she came out and said before the Olympics, we made a mistake. She just came out and said it. I mean, she covered her rear end, hoping to get the next Caitlyn Clark. I mean, it's just, I don't understand what Geno's doing. I guess he thinks he's just invincible. I guess he's looking at his past success and thinking, okay, that's going to carry me. And it just makes you wonder, too, do the people involved in women's basketball in the top positions, the coaching positions, the decision makers, did they ever really know what they were doing? I mean, for them to just miss the boat on Caitlyn so badly, so many of them, she was not recruited by many, she wasn't recruited by the UConns. I think Notre Dame was the one who recruited her the heaviest before Lisa Bluter, her home state of Iowa, University of Iowa, came in and said, we want to build a team around you. And she only had to go about an hour and a half away for college and took them to places they'd never been. So it just makes you wonder, how do they miss that? And I know some people develop later, but I mean, she was on AAU teams that were competing for national titles. She was, having historic runs in her high school. What was it about her game they said wasn't going to happen? And you go back to Geno, you look at that first interview you did on Dan Patrick before the season started, saying that, it's an insult that she's going to be in the MVP conversation. She finished fourth. Should have finished at least third, if not second. Should have got some first place votes, but they'd already determined that there's going to be unanimous MVP in Asia before the season started, but that's another story for another day that I've already talked about. So you got that, and he said that she can't handle the physicality of the game. Well, she took all those horrendous cheap shots like a champ. I mean, those hurt. Those are the hits that hurt, and those are the hits that hurt you. And every time she popped right back up and did what she had to do. Took each and every one of them like a champ and didn't even run them down to the media afterwards like I would have. Like I'm doing right now in my videos. They're just the cheapest of cheap shots. So clearly she's got something physically that allows her to, handle that contact and stuff. And these are much bigger women than her doing this to her. And so he was wrong about that, saying she's on the wrong team, saying they put a target on her back, that it's a disrespect. Well, Geno, you screwed up, dude. And that's where you need to be like Dawn Staley. I never thought I'd say this. I do not like Dawn Staley. I'm not a fan of hers at all on a personal level, but I mean, professionally, she's doing all the right stuff right now, and Geno's not. That's where you say, hey, I messed up. I should have recruited her. I didn't. What I said, I've clearly, been wrong, and now I'm gonna, look at the way I recruit people and understand that, people like Caitlyn Clark are the future. So all these girls that want to be Caitlyn Clark in high school, and even middle school, are going to say, UConn, that's where I'm going, UConn. They already got the championships and everything. And now, they got to be saying, gosh, do I want to go there if the coach doesn't think she's that good and doesn't want to run a team like that? So, they're probably going to wind up going to the University of South Carolina or, LSU with Kim Mulkey or wherever she's at the time. I mean, I don't think he understands the damage he's doing to himself, and it just makes you wonder, did he ever really know to start with? I mean, obviously he's a great recruiter of talent, but his decision-making when it comes to his choice of words, and by the way, he's the biggest shit talker of anybody. Some of the stuff he's said over the years is just crazy and quite honestly disrespectful, but she deserves it. Let's watch Diana Taurasi get clotheslined across the head and see what Geno has to say. Let's, watch Sue Bird get tackled from behind. See what Geno has to say. Let's watch Brianna Stewart get hip checked from behind when she's not even looking. I say I guess Sue's the woman in the relationship between her and Megan Rapinoe. I'd rather not think about that, come to think of it. Nothing against that. I don't have anything against that, but just Megan Rapinoe in general. I don't think about anything relating to her. How she got Sue Bird, I don't know. But, meanwhile, Dawn Staley's like, yeah, we messed up. Should have recruited her. Should have put her on the national team. And, so if you're a really talented, prospect who can do good things for a college team, I think South Carolina's going to be your destination. And I also can't wonder how much of this is due to jealousy over Geno. His second most watched game that he was ever part of was his first championship. It was a game played against the University of Tennessee, the Lady Vols, with Pat Summitt coaching them. And that was one of only two times that his team has made the top 10 in the highest viewed college basketball games ever. The other one was the number 2 game ever against Caitlyn Clark and Iowa in last year's Final Four, which Iowa won in a thriller. And Is there jealousy there? I think there is, because you have to realize after CBS stopped airing the final and ESPN picked it up, so it went off of broadcast TV to cable. Of course, the ratings are going to drop, but they dropped pretty big under Geno's watch. In fact, he had the lowest women's. If I'm not mistaken, I think 2009 they won the championship over Louisville, and that was the least watched women's championship final since they started televising it and keeping track of the viewership. So, part of me wonders that's jealousy, and just him understanding that he's built all this, and people care a lot more about Caitlyn Clark and Pat Summitt, and I mean even looks like South Carolina's getting a lot more attention than he ever got. Kim Mulkey seems to get more attention than he ever got. So he's probably realizing, hey, even with all these accomplishments, people don't really care about me or like me. Just makes you wonder, because, like I said, Caitlyn Clark definitely owns domain in the heads in Geno Auriemma's head and in the heads of a lot of UConn alum. Like I said in my previous video about this, and I'm going to say it again, she has domain in their head. She owns space in their head. I mean, a lot of people's heads too, but I mean, you can tell she's getting to them, and you have to wonder why. And that's going to cause a lot of questions, and that quite honestly need to be asked. Has he really been asked about his comments on the Dan Patrick show? I mean, it's just the way the media covering women's basketball does not hold anybody's feet to the fire except for Caitlyn Clark. They don't want to give her credit for all the good stuff she's done, which is clearly her doing. But they do want to credit her for apparently inventing shit talking, apparently inventing racist trolls on the internet and social media. It's like, you people can't be any dumber if you tried. I was hoping they would take lessons from this election, that this isn't the way to go, but it looks like they're not gonna. They're just gonna keep doing the same thing over and over again, and eventually they're gonna have no choice. I mean, look what she's doing to the LPGA. I mean, the interest in women's golf now is the highest it's ever been. They're gonna have to televise. I was talked about that in one of my videos. Are they gonna televise her program so we can watch her play golf? They weren't going to, but now they're gonna. This is the most attention women's golf's gotten probably ever, at least in a long, long time. Since Annika Sorenstam herself was doing really well. So the Caitlyn Clark effect's real, and she is the real deal on the court. And the longer people like Geno allow Caitlyn to get in her head and bother him to the point where he feels like he has to demean her, the longer that happens, and the longer it goes before he finally embraces it, I mean, the more damage is going to be done, not only to UConn, but to women's basketball in general. She's doing all these wonderful things, and she's getting shit all over. Why? If you're a woman and you're a good basketball player, it's like, okay, do I want to go, play basketball and possibly in front of nobody, depending on if they run Caitlyn Clark off or not? Or do I want to look at another career, It's just, that's the damage that's being done. That's the questions that have to be asked. And it makes you, it just makes you wonder about a lot of things there. Because, and the other funny thing is, Geno has a stake in this new Unrivaled League, the 3-on-3 women's league that they're basically begging Caitlyn Clark to be a part of. And their success is going to hinge on whether or not Caitlyn Clark plays or not. Some people seem to think she's absolutely going to. Some people think she's absolutely not going to. Oh, Caitlyn, please, please, please don't join that league. I do not want to watch Unrivaled. I do not want to watch Unrivaled, but if Caitlyn Clark's in Unrivaled, I'm going to watch it. That's all there is to it. I'm going to watch her games. I don't want to watch a league that's owned by and showcasing these tools. These, Dejanay Carrington's in it, Angel Reese is in it. Like I said, Geno owns a stake in it, and I'm like, gosh, I don't want to watch it. I do not want to watch it. But if Caitlyn Clark's there, I'm going to watch her games. So I don't know, on the LPGA, I'm offering her, because Caitlyn apparently loves golf. Gosh, LPGA, please offer her some sweetheart deals over this winter to play golf in southern Florida and southern California and all these places that don't get cold in the winter, to go there and play golf and work on her golf game so she doesn't go to Unrivaled. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to watch it. Uh, but I'll watch if Caitlyn's there. So, Geno, you're an idiot. Hope you take solace in all your championship rings and all your gold medals from all the women's teams you coached in the Olympics. Hope they bring you something because you are looked upon as a dummy. So, take care, everybody. Hope this video is half as entertaining as the first one I made about Caitlyn and UConn, and I'll talk to you guys later.